Jamal Barzinji was and is a friend, and like my mentor, Ismail al-Faruqi, and his wife Lamia, a true mujahid, whom I have known for many, many years. I had the number of years, but I decided not to. You get to a certain age. It's like, once I announce that I married 51 years, immediately I see people go, oh my God. They're not asking me if I'm going to retire, they're asking me. Anyway.
Ask if you're Muslim. The person asking me, is John Esposito a Muslim? I said, I don't know. If it is a natural religion, then he is certainly a Muslim.
As one Muslim brother said at a meeting years ago, 25 years ago, he came up to me, and I didn't know him very well. He said, Brother John, mashallah, we really think the world of you, but you're getting older. You're getting older. And then I realized what he meant. You're getting older. In any case, the time has come. All right. I hope to be here the whole day, but I apologize, but I'm on a promotion committee for 2 people who are being promoted to full professor, and we only meet once and we make a decision. So I'll have to go there in the afternoon. Just 2 comments about his personality, or the way he came across. He was powerful and what I would call an unrelenting whirlwind, driven by his deep and abiding faith. Few have combined what you had the feeling was a 24/7 dedication and energy with a razor-sharp intellect, creativeness and action so consistently and productively. You know, when I first met him so many years ago, he was younger, I thought he's acting a role. You know, you meet him, he's high energy, immediately he says something like, well, I'm thinking about this, so what do you think about that? What do you think about that? You know, it's almost like you feel like you're in school and you're being grilled, and I thought, it's kind of cute, you know, he's just, but he was that way all the time. But then when I came to direct the center, I came to really like it because unlike some of my friends who come and talk to you for 45 minutes, and when you go like this, they say, oh, by the way, I have 3 points I want to discuss. Jamal would come in, we'd have, you know, brief greetings, and it would be cut to the chase. And without using paper, he knew if he had 3 things, 7 things, it would be crisp, I would give an answer, and we'd move on. We would never get distracted, move on. When he was very ill, and in the last phase of his life, he asked me to see him, and I went there, and he looked weak. He began by saying he didn't have much time, and then proceeded to do 1, 2, 3. You know, this question, that question, this question, then another question. How are you going to do that? Why are you going to do it? And I'm the kind of person who really, I'm intuitive, okay? So if we connect and we're going to do something, then we just move on. But no, systematically he wanted to go through. The 2 things that he wanted to talk about were the very 2 things that he was very much involved in that touched my life. One was the Al-Walid Center, and the other is our project, The Bridge, an Islamophobia project. As some of you know, Al-Walid, we had a Center for Muslim-Christian Understanding created in 1993. However, after, I forget, 8, 9, 10 years, our original donor moved on, and we were running down on our finances. As things can happen, you know, it was a kind of inshallah moment. Al-Walid was thinking of creating 6 centers. He had one at AUB, AUC, and then he was going to do one in the United States. It wound up being Georgetown and Harvard. After he met me, naturally, he put Georgetown and said, we'll do 2. In any case, I don't want to brag about myself. That's where I differ from Jamal. But the reality of it was that Al-Walid was creating these centers, and these were important places for us to move forward. Our center had built a reputation. It was known internationally. But what I had to always not talk about was that we had to get funding for an endowment. Because, you know, the last thing you want to do, from my point of view, is to kind of, so when people really admire and think you've got, you know, this great ship, and then communicate that it could be the Titanic. You know, because they just naturally say, everybody comes and says, it's really great, you seem to be doing great work. You don't say, oh, we're really not going to do it. Jamal, as it turned out, there were 2 things that came right out of IIIT. One was somebody named Muna Abu Suleiman, but not being very fast, I never connected her to her father until one day after we had had a number of conversations and we were walking near Georgetown. I said, you're not related to, okay? And she immediately said, I'm his daughter. And then Al-Walid informed me that he had set up a committee and that Jamal was on the committee. The interesting thing about Jamal, again, was that he didn't change his character. That is, sometimes when you're close friends with somebody, they kind of, meet with you and they know who you are, and it's like, they're sort of reassuring. No, Jamal, you went through the formal, came to the university, met the administration, had some concerns, got in touch with me, and it was one question after the other. But as things turned out, he was a major player in our getting an endowment that assures that we will exist forever. I hope to plug into that, but I don't know for how long, into the forever. But it will be there, much to the consternation of Daniel Pipes, Pamela Geller, and an awful lot of other people. But he saw, Al-Walid saw, but I think Jamal also saw, as you could tell from the report earlier by Yaqub, that the important thing is when you create something is to be sure that it's going to last. Otherwise, the energies you put into it are wasted, and the very fact that you fail actually can make things worse at that time. The same thing happened with our project, The Bridge. I had written in the 1990s about Islamophobia at a time when that word wasn't used. That word was not used in the American media or in the United States until you had the so-called Park 51, the mosque at Ground Zero. And so it was kind of you had a metastasizing social cancer, which simply wasn't on anybody's radar. And more and more in the last few years, as you know, we're now at an all-time high in terms of, or all-time low, depending how you look at it, in terms of problems with regard to, the coverage of Islam. A recent study showed of Europe and America that 9 out of 10 media pieces are about terrorism and extremism.
Right.
And the ones on mainstream Muslims are actually more than 50% negative. Okay? You've got that, and you've got the sort of explosion that we see every time we have an election. Well, getting that funded is an issue, and I know things are never off the record, even if they are. But just to put it, I can do it antiseptically. We had a donor that indicated they were in. It took a long time, about a year negotiating, and they were in for 5 years. When it came time to sign the document, it became 1 year renewable. And when it came time for the next renewable, it was yes in 2 weeks, and then 6 months or 9 months went by, and it disappeared. Around that time, Jamal asked me to come out and see him. We had a long 2 hours about the need for funding. And then about a few months later, he asked me to see him. I remember saying to my wife, I always get lost when I go there. And now I've got to go there to have a conversation we already had. So I walk in, and we have lunch, and then I think we're not even having a conversation about, other than we had a really nice conversation. And then he said, let's go into the next room. Typically, Jamal presents me with a contract already written up. It's supposed to come that the university writes the contract. He presented it to me for my signature as well as the president, and gave me the initial check. Now, nobody does that.
Yes.
So I've come here today, and I hope a few of you will come up to me and go and do that likewise. But I think the important thing to remember is really the example. I mean, the report of Yaqub, in terms of all the different projects that Jamal and others have been involved in, is how every one of them has a long life, a long reality life, not a shelf life, where you put up a project, people talk about it, and it maybe lasts for a couple of years, and then it just disappears. It's a matter of history. And Jamal had that ability to have that vision and to work on so many fronts. As I listened to all the different groups, some of them that I hadn't been aware he was involved in, I knew the other ones. When you really think about it, you only have a limited number of hours in a day. How can anyone wrap their brain around so many different things? I mean, from the intellectual to investments to waqf to, and he was out there. I don't know many people who were that way. And I like to think of it in terms of the fact that so many of the people who created IIIT were close to Ismail, and as a result of that, I was close to them, and it's been a blessing. Thank you.
Thank you very much.